Okay, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thanks for coming out and joining us on this blustery morning. Unfortunately, it gives us a clue of what is coming, and I guess we've been spoiled to this date, but I'm thankful for the great weather that we did have, and it sounds like we're gonna have another nice day on Tuesday, so got one more day of reprieve. So this is the fifth session in the 5-part series titled "Why Do We Need to Talk About Racism?" And I appreciate you being here because the more people we can have discussing this issue, the better. And even though this is the last in this series, the St. Stephen's Anti-Racism Team has plans to continue doing some educational things during adult ed in the upcoming year related to this topic, and we hope to bring in some guest speakers and some things like that. We ask for your continued support in those efforts. Our discussion has been around the overt-covert racism pyramid, and we have covered about, I think, 12 of the elements of covert racism. The material provided by the United Methodist Church and their Commission on Religion and Race has actually 31 elements of covert racism. So before we leave today, I have some handouts that include all 31 of those elements and their descriptions. So what I'm really encouraging each of you to do is take those home, just kind of periodically pick one and have a discussion with your significant other, or better yet, with your entire family, or maybe a friend or something like that. So I really encourage you to continue to take a look at these. It took us multiple weeks to go through these and discuss these in the St. Stephen's men's group. And we had some pretty in-depth discussion on all of those, but the really big thing, the really value I saw in that is it helped us do a lot of self-reflection on our actions and attitudes and how they might be affecting people of minorities, and how we can make some corrections in those things, and not do them either intentionally or unintentionally. Last time, these are the 3 elements that we took a look at last time: fear of people of color, disbelieving experiences of people of color, and denying white privilege. One video we didn't get a chance to take a look at related to fear of people of color is an incident that, follow-up to an incident that most of you are probably aware of that took place at a Starbucks. I think it was out east. I think it might have been New York in 2019. So we'll take a look at a little follow-up conversation about that. Apologize, I should have pulled the video open first, but I didn't. Now, one reservation I have about videos like this is that standing up to racism, it tends to be white people standing up to racism, and I think we need to be careful to not put that in the light of, oh, the white people are the heroes here, because that's certainly not the case. It was white people that put the black people in this situation in the first place. But what we should focus on is that as a white person, as a person not in the minority, we should stand up for someone else's rights and not just keep quiet. So that's how I, whoops. I may have.
Michelle Sahib and Melissa DePino didn't know each other, but they were thrust together into the national spotlight the day they witnessed two black men being arrested at Starbucks in Philadelphia for not buying coffee. This video, posted by Melissa, went viral and has now been viewed more than 11 million times.
What did they get called for? Black guys sitting here eating? Yes, I did. What did they do?
You can hear Michelle loudly defending the men.
They didn't what did they do?
That video led to a massive backlash, and Starbucks responded by closing 8,000 stores to conduct racial bias education for employees. Since then, Michelle and Melissa have co-founded an organization, From Privilege to Progress, that encourages white people to speak out against racism and amplify the voices of people of color. Just last week, Melissa came face to face with potential presidential candidate and former Starbucks CEO, Howard Schultz, while he was in Philadelphia promoting his new book. During his appearance, Schultz addressed the controversial arrests.
We had a bad policy in which it was really the manager's discretion. She was white. In a matter of minutes, a verbal problem occurred, and she decided that she felt the threat, and she called 911.
A few minutes later, Melissa stood up and confronted Mr. Schultz, accusing him of misrepresenting what happened the day of the arrest.
Very respectfully, I need to say to you, you are not describing the incident accurately. And the way you are describing it is perpetuating the problem. But when you say there was words between the two of them and she felt threatened, it didn't happen. I saw it with my own two eyes.
Michelle and Melissa are here to share the story behind the headlines of two innocent black men being arrested right in front of them, and how it has led to a national conversation on race.
Really excited to get to know you. I think your story is incredible. Can we start with you kind of telling us about your story and how all this started, how you two met?
We were just at Starbucks. We didn't know each other.
Not together?
No, not together.
Strangers.
Strangers. You know, it's a regular day for me. I was in a Starbucks. You know, I walk in, and I saw these two really cute black boys walk in. That's why she was watching. Because they were cute, so I was watching them.
Right.
And they walked up to the barista, asked to use the bathroom, and she said, no, it's for paying customers only. And they sat down, and for some reason, my gut immediately said, I don't trust her.
Right.
And the white guy next to me was there for 45 minutes. He didn't have a coffee.
Yeah.
I saw a white girl walk in, mid-jog, use the bathroom, and leave.
Wow.
But I said, you know, Michelle, maybe you're assuming,
Judging, prejudging. Yeah.
judging.
Michelle's instincts were right. At that moment, the Starbucks manager was calling 911.
How may I help you? Hi, I have two gentlemen in my cafe that are refusing to make a purchase or leave. I'm at the Starbucks at 1833. All right, please help me out as soon as possible. Thank you.
And I heard her lie. And I was like, oh my gut was right. I heard her lie. She goes, those two gentlemen in the corner, they're refusing to leave. And it's very like fake damsel in distress type of voice.
Right.
And the cop showed up like 10 minutes later.
I was sitting there, I had my headphones in, and I saw the two police officers come in, and then two more, and then two more, and I was left.
There were like 8.
There were 8.
Wait, what?
For guys not buying coffee. And I was like, oh my God. And the cops didn't ask her any questions. There was no investigation. They beelined for these dudes. And I was like, they're actually gonna go do something about this, right?
And then I heard Michelle's voice, because you hear it on the video.
What did they do? Someone told me they did.
They didn't do anything. I saw the entire thing.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, so I started sweating, I started shaking. Now, mind you, it's almost all white people in the Starbucks. Half of them don't have coffees. And what was so frustrating is that no one was saying anything. No one was paying attention. And then Melissa was the first white person to say something.
And then all of a sudden, you know how like that moment where you see something and then you really see it?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. So then I stood up and I was like, I was just in here yesterday. I didn't buy coffee. I sat here for an hour.
You know, I confronted the cops, I confronted the barista, and I was like, did you feel like your life was in danger? And she couldn't respond to me. So I was like, well, I don't know what else to do. So I stood back and I yelled at her and I said, "You're a coward." I walked back to my table and I'm packing up all my stuff and I look up and there are just all these white women staring at me. And I was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen now? I look over and we made eye contact.
I mean, I knew those kinds of things happened, but I never spoke up in my life before, and I didn't even like intend anything. I just was standing there and I was so angry and I was so scared for them. And I just like really felt it for the first time, and I really felt like, oh my God, that never happens to me. It just hit me. And I'm ashamed to say it just hit me at that time, but I'm glad it hit me.
We just
I'm
talked
glad
about
it
that.
hit
You
me.
have to have the experience. You have to see it and experience it in some way to really, for it to be real and tangible.
And I got outside and I was shaking too. And I was like, somebody's got to put this on social media. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I can do it. I had no followers. I'm like shaking. I'm writing this tweet. Michelle is standing next to me. I'm like, is this caption okay? And I was like, okay, maybe I should tweet it at some other people. So I tweeted it at Sean King and at DeRay McKesson. And 24 hours later, oh my gosh. That experience of going viral is insane. Insane. And how many people said to me, I never knew that happened until you shared it. There must have been more to that story. There's
Nothing else happened. That's how racism works. It doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Nothing else needs to happen. You see black skin, 911.
Exactly.
We were outside, we were talking to all these girls, and there was like a group of them. And we can't believe how calm those guys were. They were so calm. What'd they say? Oh, we would have flipped out.
we would have flipped out.
Oh, well, we were
flipped
flipped out. I go, and you would have been able to because you're white girls.
Right.
And I was like, oh, how are they going to react? And they were like, you know what, you're right. Because when you're in that moment, you can't deny it anymore. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It was very obvious.
She was the person to speak up. And I just amplified what she did.
You flowed her power.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we do believe 100% that if she had been the one to tweet that, no, we would not be sitting here. When a white person says it, it's new.
We've been talking about how do we bridge that gap.
Specific-
You're bridging the gap. You are joining forces to make change. And I think it's so beautiful that you got to see that she wasn't being heard. Now I'm going to help you be heard. I'm going to amplify your voice by adding my voice to your voice as your sister and as understanding that this is not right.
Right, because they both there and experienced it in a similar way. Because that you can be in the same room and see this and not experience this, the same way.
Right. When I look at somebody like Megyn Kelly, okay, I know, but here's the thing. When I look at somebody like
She's so much more
Megyn
forgiving
Kelly,
than me.
I am. You have to be.
You are, and I
Because we
appreciate
all
that.
we all have our biases.
We do.
And when she apologized, she got on television, and I'm not saying that there would have been this big turnover of like, oh, now I get it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that instead of constantly punishing, like, I get it, and you're gonna get punished, you're gonna get your backlash. You are. That's gonna happen, and you should. But at the same time, that's the time to start having a conversation. I would love to know why she thought that was okay.
They're starting to talk about another incident there, but, okay, so just gonna share out loud, anyone that cares to, what are your thoughts, what are your reactions after watching that video and thinking about it? John?
Okay, I guess this I guess this one, I guess this one kind of relates to the idea of like, okay, well, the Starbucks CEO mentioned it, and like, the idea of trying to frame this kind of thing as like, okay, well, white woman felt threatened by a black man. That's,
Yeah, and he tried to use it in exactly that way. Yeah. Anybody else, Donna?
About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I observed a situation at Walmart, and I was exiting the west door, and down the corridor from the east door, a lady in a little cart was approaching, and as she got closer, the greeter person went over and stopped her, and then another employee came and stood while she's down here over her, and asked to look at her packages. And where was her receipt? And she was upset because her car was at the other entrance and they didn't let her exit at that point. They made her go all the way down. So I stepped by to observe, not knowing what was going to happen. And fairly soon, the lady got frustrated and couldn't find her receipt. And then a third employee came down, so they were surrounded this lady, and she was black. She wasn't quite my age, but she was an elderly person. But it was almost like an ambush in a sense, and it disturbed me so much. And eventually they found the receipt in one of her bags. They didn't even apologize, say, oh, sorry. And I don't know the whole story. I'm planning to visit with the Walmart manager. I haven't gotten there yet. But she was assumed guilty before proven innocent. Perhaps she's a regular in the store. I don't know the whole story. Maybe she's shoplifted in the past. I don't know that, but what I saw was very prejudgmental. And I basically saw them just attack this lady. And then she dropped the package, and I followed her out of the store and picked it up for her. I apologized for what happened, but I couldn't fix it.
And that's a good segue into one of the questions I was gonna ask. This incident happened in 2019. It was all over the news. There was a lot of outcry about it. So do you think that incident helped bring that to light, and does it still happen? Of course it still happens.
Of course it does.
Yeah, Mike?
One thing that struck me is how the white woman said she had never spoken up before, but clearly some things were on her radar because she was able to send a tweet to the important people like that. So she was ready to speak up. She had some awareness of people connected with Black Lives Matter. It looked like there were some things she was following, and she may have never done it, but she was really ready to, and she could.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think, I'm not ready to do that because I don't, first of all, what's this tweet thing? I don't know. But I don't know. You're young, you probably don't. But like to be able to be ready to do that and to be connected to something might be an important step too, to be able to speak out. And that when you can do it, and it's, the exposure of things is so important.
Well, that's just it, is one of the elements that we did discuss is disbelieving the experiences of people of color. And I think, I mean, that's been done in, all throughout our US history.
Just this
and-
last week with Plessy being, sorry, I'm blanking on his first name, but this week they just pardoned a man from, you learned about Plessy versus Ferguson, wasn't it?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Jonathan, do you know the details? My brain's a little fuzzy on this morning.
I know Plessy versus Ferguson was the 1896 case where that basically established separate but equal, if that's what you're talking about.
So,
And he tried to go somewhere where he should not have been and did not leave Plessy. He was charged with a crime, and he was finally pardoned, 150 years after the fact, just this past week.
oh, cool.
He was cleared. And
That's gonna do him a lot of good.
But,
that's what line takes us to correct things in this country.
no, I drew a blank. No, I'm drawing a blank on what I was gonna say. But, I mean, we have the Ahmaud Arbery case going on right now, which was all totally related to that fear of people of color and making those judgments of guilty before, instead of presumed incident.
I think it's important what the black woman was saying. If I had done that, it wouldn't have been listened to.
Yeah.
Or it would have been listened to differently because it would have been taken as too passionate, too angry. And if those men, like everybody was floored how calm they could stay, if they had